Hey, so today didn't go as planned. I mean, I didn't sleep well, so that doesn't help. But no, do you remember when I sort of jokingly was like, hey, we should add up my oppression points? Might have been on that feminism in high school video, I'm not really sure. But, yeah, no, I was sort of like, let's do that. Well, I found a quiz. It's the how privileged are you? Check in brackets list. Aha, clever. Checklist your privilege. And it's BuzzFeed. And, you know, I mean, I wasn't expecting much because, like, BuzzFeed has always been this den of shitty quizzes. Although, disturbingly, they have attempted to make, like, a proper journalism thing. And I'm just like, you guys are crazy. Sticking the BuzzFeed logo and, you know, that whole name onto something that's meant to be proper journalism, like, that is one of the worst marketing kind of decisions. You associating proper journalism with these dumb quizzes and things. I don't know. I don't get it. And then, you know, finding out that BuzzFeed is so left-leaning, they've pretty much fallen over. But no, so I wasn't expecting much. And what I thought I would do is, like, there's 100 questions, I think. Yeah, and I thought I'd go through them with you and be like, hey, let's look at these and, you know, take it all. But I started making that video and it's such a bad quiz slash checklist thing that I just, like, I spent too much time going, oh my god, are you shitting me? And, you know, this video was getting up to be an hour long and I was just like, this is terrible. And I sort of deleted it in a bit of, like, frustration. Yeah, so I'll put a link in the description to this quiz if you want to have a go at it, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's infuriating. So after that, like, I'd already wasted my day because my morning was lost to sleeplessness and trying to recover sleep and, you know, interruptions and so on. And then this video that didn't work out, and then people coming home, and, yeah, I wasted a lot of time. So I had a go at writing out some of the problems I had with this quiz and got up to a little over 1,000 words, and then I was just like, this doesn't even say everything, but I've got to stop. Anyway, so if you're interested, I guess I'll read out some of the problems I had with this quiz, and then you can go and look at it if you want and decide, you know, how shit you think it is and the things that I didn't mention about it and, you know, some of the problems I could have elaborated on. I suppose, though, we should start off with my score. So I got 42 out of 100 points of privilege, and I think that's probably a bit low. Knowing what I know about, like, how extreme left and that kind of view, I know, like, knowing what I know about how they view privilege and so on, I feel like my score should have been higher than 42. 42 is the meaning of life, though, so I'll take it. But, yeah, so many of the questions, I didn't really know how to answer them because they're kind of vague and simplistic and needed clarification and needed more precise language, and it's just like, and then some of them, I don't even know what they're talking about, so it's like, how do I answer this question if I don't know what you mean? So I got 42 out of 100 points of privileged and scored 28% higher than, oh no, I scored more than I got more points than 28% of people who've taken this quiz. And then it says, can your friends beat you? So what it says is, you're not privileged at all. You grew up with an intersectional, complicated identity, and life never let you forget it. You've had your fair share of struggles, and you've worked hard to overcome them. We do not live in an ideal world, and you had to learn that the hard way. It is not your responsibility to educate those with more advantages than you, but if you decide you want to, go ahead and send them this quiz. Hopefully it will help. Which just sounds like a load of bullshit to me. I mean, I come from a reasonably well-off background. Like, we've got challenges. I've got a brother who's disabled. I've had my struggles with mental illness, and then there's other things you can throw in there. But overall, pretty comfy lifestyle, I think. And so yeah, I've had struggles, but I think I find it interesting. I mean, the way they've weighted some of these questions is odd. I went through and tried to add up how many questions targeted different things, and yeah, I don't know what system they used to categorize them. So, geez, I didn't put these in order. But so the one they asked the most questions about is wealth, which I think is right. Like, wealth is the main thing in terms of, like, your position in society. But some of the questions just didn't make sense. They were very specific, and, like, you had to be in a specific situation to really answer yes to it. So that was a bit dumb. After that, sexual orientation, after that, race, after that, sex, after that, well, I mean, they call it gender, but it's the same thing. And then after that, religion, and then mental health, and then identity in general, then appearance, so including weight, then disabilities, oh, education I missed, parents, but like, you know, there's some things they only asked like one question about, like general health, one question about general health. Yeah, I'm not really sure how they weighted this thing, but anyway. But back to what they're saying about me and privilege is like, you know, okay, so I got more points than 28% of people who took this test. Maybe there are some people who don't have the internet and can't take the test, and maybe that's a factor. I don't know, but I have a feeling that I've got more advantages than people who don't have access to the internet. So that's a thought. I don't know. I think it's kind of funny that. And then, you know, oh, it's not my responsibility to educate those with more advantages than me. Then how are they going to know that there's a problem? You know, if you see a problem and you don't speak out about it, you can't just expect other people to magically know what the problem is. You know, I had this problem back with the asexual group, and I got into a little bit of trouble with some of the gender people there, and you know, one of the things they say when you're trying to have a conversation with them is, oh, I don't have to educate you, you should look it up. Well, yeah, I looked it up, and I found other perspectives, and these particular people I ended up thinking were full of bullshit, so if they wanted me to see their perspective, they probably should have told me instead of telling me to go away and figure out myself. Although, really, in general, you should go away and figure it out yourself, like what you really think, but, you know, if you want someone to see your perspective, you have to give your perspective. Otherwise, how are they going to know? They're just going to magically know that you're not happy with your situation. I think that's a ridiculous thing to say. It's not your responsibility to educate. Oh, fuck. Then you don't want change, huh? Anyway, so that was my score. But yeah, there were a lot of things where I'm just like, I'm not sure if I should click this because you haven't been specific enough. Anyway, so 8 minutes in, I finally get up to this 1,000+ word rambling. So my first point is, like, how do I answer questions about race considering I'm a half white Australian and half Japanese person? I mean, the very first question, the very first checklist item says I am white. So if you're white, you're supposed to tick it. But I'm only half white, so what do? There's no... It just says check off all the statements that apply to you. There's no clarification on that. And I know it's a BuzzFeed quiz and I shouldn't take it seriously, but it seems to take itself seriously. Like, at the bottom they have this video about privilege, and, like, you know, there's people standing in a line and then they ask questions and you step forward or backwards depending on what your answer is. And, you know, they're all about, you know, people need to know this stuff and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, all right, you know, it doesn't have the tone of a normal BuzzFeed quiz where they're like, oh, which animal are you? This one seems to be attempting to highlight some kind of problem in society, but yeah, I don't know. It's simplistic and vague, and I don't know how to answer those questions about race. Because I don't know that it even occurs to these people that, you know, mixed race people exist. Anyway, the next comment I have on it is, yeah, the checklist asks questions that assume a certain situation might be due to privilege rather than other factors, and this is part of their problem with not being clear. So one example is when it asks, the checklist item was, I've never been the only person of my race in a room. And I think the idea is that they want to find out if you're part of the majority race in a given country. So presumably, if you're a minority in that country, then there's a good chance you will be the only person of your race in that room. Problem with this, there's 3 problems I came up with. So I rarely ever meet other half-white Australian and half-Japanese people anywhere, and I think that's just a statistics thing, not a privilege thing. And you know, like, there is no country dominated by half-white, half-Japanese people, and I don't see that as having anything to do with privilege. It's just like, you know, my parents happen to come from different countries. Here's me. Whoop-de-doo. So I'm, like, almost always the only half-Japanese, half-white person anywhere. There's only a few situations where I ever meet anyone the same mix as me. Second thing, you know, I recently did my Master of Art degree at UNSW, and UNSW has a high intake of overseas students. So there was this one class where I was almost the whitest person in the room, almost the whitest. But then this older lady showed up late, and she was the only white person in the room, and I was the only half-white person in the room. So yeah, that class was mostly Chinese and Indian students, and then, yeah, no one in that class was Japanese. In fact, across my whole degree, I only met 2 Japanese people in any of my classes, and I didn't meet anyone of a mixed-race Japanese-white background. So, you know, dumb question there. It has nothing to do with my privilege. It's just that I am a weird mix, unusual mix, you know, whatever. And then the third thing is, some people can afford to go traveling overseas, and in that situation, they could easily end up being the only person of their race in the room, but it's only because they can afford to travel, whereas a lot of people can't afford to travel, so it's kind of a ridiculous, narrow-minded question, like, ooh, if you've ever been the only person of your race, you know, that means you're underprivileged, you're oppressed somehow, and it's just, no, maybe you had the money to go overseas and be the only person of your race in the room, you know? It's kind of dumb. What another thing that might be due, that they're assuming is due to privilege rather than other factors, they ask a question like whether or not strangers have asked to touch your hair, or is your hair real? And I think this one is intended to find out if your race has made your hair seem unusual to the majority, because, you know, some races have different kinds of hair. It's a biological thing. But it doesn't account for people like me who have in the past colored their hair really bright, unnatural colors, you know, doing this sort of goth, whatever, alternative thing just because I wanted to. Sometimes because it was part of a performance thing. But yeah, no, I'd colour my hair these bright colours, and sometimes people think it's a wig. And then there were times where I did the cybergoth kind of look. So I actually had cyberlocks, synthetic dreads, and scoobies, which are these little plastic things, sewn into my hair. And, you know, I've been to a few different universities and attempted various courses before, like, bailing out, because I was just like, this isn't the course for me. So there was the second time I went to Sydney University, that was for mechatronic engineering and medical science. I met this chick who put her fingers into the ends of my cyberlocks without asking. Like, we had just met and she's poking around in my hair. And that was really, it was just super rude and annoying, and she was a very bizarre kind of person. But that's on her. That's not me being oppressed. And, you know, same thing with my hair looking like a wig or something. I mean, some of those hairstyles are quite expensive. This is when I was working and could afford it. So I don't think that's got anything to do with oppression. Unless BuzzFeed thinks, like, our chosen subcultures are oppressed, which would be ridiculous, but then again, it's BuzzFeed, so I guess they could think that in this day and age. I don't know, someone somewhere probably thinks that's oppression. And then another situation that they assume is due to privilege rather than other factors is they ask things like, have you ever gone to bed hungry? And I have, but that's not to do with my access to food. The kitchen's right there. If I want to eat, if I'm really hungry, I can go and eat. But you know, there are times in my life where I've been hungry, but my appetite's been really suppressed, so I couldn't eat. And then sometimes, like, I've just already brushed my teeth and I don't want to go and eat something, partly because aftertaste from brushing your teeth, like toothpaste, doesn't mix with some things. And then also you don't want to brush your teeth again, and it's just gross. Like, once you've brushed your teeth, just go to bed. So, you know, I have gone to bed hungry. Nothing to do with me being oppressed. It's like one of these vague questions, and I realize I'm probably nitpicking, but like, if you want to get to the bottom of a problem, precise language helps, you know, and that's not the only example, that's just the one that's the easiest to explain, I guess. Yeah, this type of question really needed to be clarified, to indicate whether or not these things happened unavoidably. Like, they could have asked, have you ever gone to bed, hungry unavoidably? You know, I could avoid going to bed hungry, you know. So I just think they didn't really think some of these questions through. Okay, what else? Oh, there are a lot of questions that ask if someone has called you something insulting. But the thing is, when someone's insulting you, they don't always do it to your face, you don't always hear about it, you don't necessarily know. So, I struggle to answer those questions because I have no way of knowing what people are saying about me behind my behind my back. Yeah, I'm really tired, so I'm probably gonna say dumb stuff every now and then. But yeah, so they word all these things. I have never been called whatever. What they probably could have said is like, no one has ever said whatever to my face, or I have never been aware of someone saying this about me, you know, it's kind of important. I'm thinking about it too much, but I'm sure people have said dumb shit about me. I mean, I used to get some crazy YouTube comments and people messaging me, so I know that people talk. And you know, every now and then I hear about something someone said in like the local music scene about me, and I'm like, well, shit, hey, I don't know what people have called me, and I mean, that doesn't mean I'm oppressed, it just means that people are dicks, basically, and, you know, you can't let that get to you, can you? You know? So yeah, that was kind of dumb, those kinds of questions, there's quite a few. I don't know if I mentioned this later, but some of the things were very specific to, just, like, gay slurs, and, you know, not everyone, like, you can call people a gay slur if they're straight, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're gay or oppressed or anything like that. I don't know, I might repeat that later because I don't remember, and this is such a long thing I've written because I'm an idiot. Yeah, the next point was, some of the questions about sexuality were difficult for me to answer because I consider myself asexual, and that's got some big differences to being gay or bi or whatever people call themselves these days. Yeah, and on top of that, some of the questions appear to ignore anything outside of being straight or gay. Like, there are some questions that don't even account for bi, and, like, you know, when you go LGB, the B is there, you know, it's not like a hidden thing. Like, asexuality doesn't always end up in LGBT, and I kind of think it shouldn't be a part of LGBT, you know, really, honestly. But the B is there, and they don't even, some of the questions didn't even take that into account. So yeah, some of the questions just assume there's either straight or gay, and obviously gay is supposed to be the oppressed one. They also assume you have a partner in some of these questions, and they seem to assume that, yeah, this is where I repeat the thing, they seem to assume that just being called a gay slur makes you oppressed, without accounting for the fact that some people use those terms regardless of your actual orientation. Like, you know, don't be gay, you know, you can say that to anyone, or we did when we were like kids and before this thing became politically incorrect. So, you know, you can say dumb shit to anyone and use those kinds of slurs even if someone isn't a thing. Like, what did I mention last time about someone being called a Nazi when they're not a Nazi, and then getting offended and being like, get the cops on them for calling me a Nazi kind of thing? Like, you know, you can call anyone any kind of dumb thing, and if you say it the right way, it can sound insulting. You know, it's like how, well, I won't say it because I know some people get offended, but like, we're Aussies, right? We call people the C word, and you're like, she's a shit, he's a good, you know. It feels unnatural for me to say it because I don't say it in everyday life anyway, but you get what I mean, is like, we use it as an insult and as a term of endearment, so hey, it depends on how you say it, context matters, and it doesn't mean that you're actually what you're being accused of being. And sometimes that accusation isn't really a real accusation, it's just using the word to put someone down. Blah, blah, blah. A sort of related point is, I don't understand what it means. So, one of the checklist items was, I am always comfortable with PDA with my partner in public. And I don't know what that means. As far as I know, a PDA is a personal digital assistant. Those little mini computers that were around before smartphones and kind of sucked. My grandpa got one. He used to have like a little pocket organizer, and then someone got it in his head that he should get a PDA, and that didn't work out for him because they're really bad. So he gave it to me because I was like the tech nerd in the family, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this, but I'd take it to school and like try and do work on it, and it was just awful. PDAs, my goodness. But no, this is in the context of some kind of relationship thing. Like, how, okay, so I don't have a partner, so I just didn't take that one, but I don't even know what it's meant to be asking me. Sure, I could Google it, but I don't give a crap. Next, the questions about religion are super weird to answer as an atheist, especially one that asks if there's a place of worship for my religion in my town. And there's not, because atheists don't worship, so am I underprivileged because I don't worship? That was really bizarre. This one's fun. The assumption that just being a man definitely gives you privilege. Like, that's silly. Sometimes being a chick has worked against me, like back when, when I was first getting into being in bands, and there were quite a few metal bands who didn't take me seriously or didn't even give me a go, even though I could growl. They just like see that you're a chick and be like, oh no, we're looking for a dude. I mean, sometimes that's because they genuinely want a dude sound, and I don't have a dude sound, but if all they're asking for is like, general kind of singing, growling, whatever, some of them just don't take you seriously if you're a chick. Well, they didn't back then. This is a while ago, and things have changed a bit as more female singer-screamers have come to prominence. So yeah, I mean, I'm not having success at the moment because it seems like no metal bands are looking for vocalists in Sydney. But that's my misfortune. That's not because people have been like, oh hey, and then found out you're a chick and then be like, oh, actually we're looking for a dude. Or they were the ones who'd get you into audition just out of curiosity but not really take any of it seriously, and you'd leave feeling like, why did I even bother showing up? Yeah, so sometimes being a chick has worked against me, but other times it's worked in my favor. So this one particular incident, I was with a male friend, and we were confronted by this idiot who, he attacked my friend and not me. And I can only assume this is about me being a chick and him being a dude. So, that initial confrontation wasn't too bad. He cornered my friend, and it was kind of awkward, but eventually we were able to get away, and we're walking down these stairs, and, we thought we were safe. So while this had been going on, I memorized the guy's number plate because he'd gotten out of a car to confront us. And so I was typing in his number plate into my phone so that I'd remember it and could report it to the cops. And he actually had been like stopped at the top of these stairs and was like watching us as we're going down, and I'm on my phone. And when he saw what I was doing, he chased after us. Now, I was the one writing this in my phone, okay? But he went for my friend who was doing nothing. He was just walking with me. So it was this super weird thing where this idiot, like, he wanted to be violent, but he was also holding to the rule that you don't hit girls. So even though I was the one taking down his number plate information and all that, as we're walking along, instead of going for me, he went for my male friend. Like, that is a situation where being a chick has somehow worked to my advantage. It was really weird. So, whereas my friend was targeted for being male, like, there are things like this that happen, not everything about being a dude is all rainbows and sunshine, one of the things in this checklist, it just says, I am a man, and if you tick that, you get 1 privilege point. It's just like, it's a very simplistic way to look at things. Oh, and then my last major gripe before I gave up was just how America-centric this whole thing was. So one example, when it comes to student loans, okay, I understand in America student loans are a very different thing. You have to pay like everything yourself somehow, so you get a loan and then you're paying off your loan forever. In Australia, we do have a sort of student loan system, but you owe the government, and the government only chases you for money once you make above a certain income threshold. So I've tried a lot of different university level courses in my lifetime. A lot. My government debt for education is massive, but because I don't really make money, they don't harass me to pay that back. So, you know, it's a different thing. Just asking if I have a student loan tells you nothing. It's a very America particular problem in this situation. Another thing, as an Australian, like, I have no need to know what Sally Mae is. They reckon, I think they said, if you don't know what Sally Mae is, you're privileged. And I'm just like, okay, so as an Aussie, I don't need to know, and neither does anyone living in a poverty or war-stricken country. You know, not knowing what Sally Mae is doesn't automatically mean someone's privileged. Like, do they think only American people are going to look at this quiz? It's just nuts. And this is BuzzFeed, who see themselves as being so progressive. It's like, I mean, that's the impression I've gotten from them. It's just nuts. And then on that same thing, like, overall, it's as if BuzzFeed is too privileged to know that anything outside America actually exists. And what makes this even weirder is that one of the writers for this quiz is listed as a BuzzFeed India contributor who must know that people outside America have access to this shit. Sorry to be repetitive, I'd go ad-lib, and, you know, say the same thing again. But yeah, it's crazy. So those were like the problems before I gave up. I had one more comment, which was more just an interesting thing. It was interesting to see them refer only to gender, and in a way that seems to equate it to sex, because I'm aware of how social studies have corrupted the word gender into confusion. I was under the impression that BuzzFeed would buy into the idea that sex and gender are different things, so I figure either they're asking unnecessarily specific questions about only one half of that equation, because if sex and gender are different things, you'd assume that both of them are important to some things. I mean, is only one important and not the other? That doesn't make sense. Otherwise, like, if they're not failing to see both sides of that supposed equation, then in that case, they'd be demonstrating the normal usage of the word that sees sex and gender as the same thing. So I found that interesting. I don't know if that's just like, I don't know what to think about it, because this whole quiz is just really dumb and I spent too much brain power on it. Oh, and yeah, with my breakdown of like, just at the end of this document, I just have that breakdown of like how many questions they asked about each specific thing. So some of them, like, you might disagree with, like, exactly what category they fall into, but, I counted 13 for race, 14 for sexual orientation, with 3 biased to homosexuality. For sex/gender, there were 10 questions, with 3 specific to gender identity. See, I think what most people mean when they say gender is gender identity, but no, they've squashed it all into one term that makes no sense anymore. Whatever, no one ever asks me about these things. With wealth, there were 29 questions. This is a little bit harder to figure out because some of them are a blurry area, but I listed it as 29 wealth questions with 2 overlapping education. So then with education, there was 4, including the 2 that overlapped with wealth. Parents, there are 3 questions. Disabilities, 3 questions, which is just like, I mean, having a brother who's disabled, and having seen a whole lot of disabled people, I'm like, yeah, I kind of think having some of these severe disabilities really give you a strong disadvantage, but, you know, whatever. Mental health was 6 questions, general health was 1, appearance, which included, like, weight, whether you're overweight or underweight or whatever, was 4. Drugs was 1, and I separated that from addiction, which was 1 question, because drugs aren't the only thing you can be addicted to. I mean, I just banned myself from watching YouTube for a week. And then religion was 7 questions, and then they had 5 general identity questions, which, like, I don't like the word identity, but I'm gonna go because this was really dumb, and my phone is about to make a new video file, and I can't be bothered to stitch them together, so yeah, it was terrible. Go do it for a laugh if you want, and post your results in the comments if you're really, but mostly it wasn't worth the time, and yeah, fuck it. BuzzFeed sucks. Oh, I will quickly tell you, I asked people, I don't know if I will get a chance to, please don't make a second file phone while I'm looking at this. I asked on Facebook, what even is BuzzFeed? My favorite answer, when you eat bees. That was my favorite answer, and I'll leave you with that. Bye, and BuzzFeed can fuck off. Just as bad as everybody else. And I'm done. Catwoman, cosmic here!